Imagine you're driving alone on a cold morning, earning a living as a ride-hailing driver when something happens that changes your life forever. This is the true story of Marcus Thompson, a Chicago Uber driver who, after a single night in October 2023, decided he would never work after 6 p.m. again. What happened on that ride was so disturbing that he abandoned night shifts altogether, even though they were the most lucrative. Marcus had been driving for Uber for 4 years. Like many drivers, he discovered that the early morning hours were his most profitable. Airport runs, people leaving bars, night shift workers returning home. At night, he could make between $200 and $300 just working from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. It was tiring, but it paid the bills and left some extra cash. That Friday in October, Marcus started his shift as usual. The first ride was uneventful, an executive returning from the airport. The second ride, a couple leaving a restaurant. Everything was normal until around 1:30 a.m., when he received a ride request from a neighborhood he knew well, but always avoided working alone. It was an area with some security issues, but the fare was good, $43 for a 25-minute trip. Marcus accepted the ride and drove to the address indicated. It was an old residential building with poor streetlights. He sent the standard message informing them he had arrived and waited. After a few minutes, a figure approached the car. It was a man, apparently in his 40s, wearing a dark coat and carrying a small backpack. He climbed into the back seat without saying a word. Marcus tried to break the ice, as he always did. "Good evening. How's your day going?" No response. He checked the GPS and confirmed the destination, an industrial area on the other side of the city. "We're going to Industrial Street, right?" The passenger just mumbled a barely audible yes. For the first 15 minutes of the drive, it was completely silent. Marcus put on some quiet music on the radio and concentrated on driving. But something was wrong. In the rearview mirror, he could see the man constantly glancing out the rear window as if he were being followed. His hands were shaking slightly, and he clutched his backpack protectively to his chest. As they neared their destination, the man finally spoke. "This way," he said, pointing to an empty parking lot next to an abandoned warehouse. Marcus hesitated. That wasn't exactly the address on the app, and the area seemed completely deserted. "Are you sure?" "The GPS shows it's still 3 blocks away," Marcus replied, feeling butterflies in his stomach. "Stop here, please," the passenger insisted, this time with an urgency in his voice that made Marcus realize something was definitely not right. He parked the car as requested, but kept the engine running and the doors locked. The man sat for a few seconds, just observing the surroundings through the windows. It was then that Marcus noticed something that made him freeze. On the passenger's trembling hands were dark stains that looked like blood. And the backpack he was holding so carefully had a damp spot on the bottom. Marcus felt his heart race. Every instinct told him to get out of there immediately. "Thanks for the ride," the man said, finally getting out of the car. But instead of walking away, he stood by the driver's side window for what felt like an eternity. Marcus could see he was crying. "Sorry about all this," the man murmured before disappearing into the darkness between the warehouses. Marcus wasted no time. He sped up and got out of there as quickly as possible. All the way home, he couldn't stop thinking about what he had just witnessed. The bloodstains, the strange behavior, the wet backpack, the isolated location. It all created a deeply disturbing scene. The next day, Marcus was having breakfast when he saw a news story in the local paper that confirmed his worst fears. A man had been found dead in an apartment on the same street where he had picked up the mysterious passenger. The police were investigating the case as a homicide and were looking for witnesses. The victim's photo was in the paper, and Marcus recognized it immediately. It was someone who looked a lot like his passenger from the previous night. Marcus realized at that moment that he had been used as a means of escape from a crime scene. The man he had transported was likely fleeing after committing murder. The backpack contained evidence, The stains on his hands were the victim's blood, and Marcus had unknowingly helped a criminal escape. He immediately contacted the police and provided all the information he had about the ride. He cooperated fully with the investigation, providing details about the passenger, the time, the destination, and everything else he could remember. The police told him this information was crucial to the case. Over the next few weeks, Marcus had to testify several times. He discovered that the passenger in the suit had killed an acquaintance in an argument that got out of hand, and had used Uber as his escape method, because he knew it would be harder to track than a traditional taxi or public transportation. After this traumatic experience, Marcus made a decision that completely changed his work routine. He decided he would never work overnight again. Even though he knew it would mean a significant reduction in his monthly income, he no longer felt safe driving alone in the darkest hours of the night. "I always knew that working late at night had its risks," Marcus explained in a later interview. "But I never imagined I could become an unwitting accomplice to a crime. That night showed me how dangerous it can be to transport strangers when you have no idea where they've been or what they've been." Marcus now works only during the day and early evening, never working past 6 in the evening. His income has decreased by about 40%, but he says the peace of mind is worth far more than the extra money. He also installed a security camera in his car and always keeps the GPS on his shared phone with his wife during runs. This story reminds us that behind every ride-hailing service, there's a driver taking risks to make a living. And sometimes, those risks are much greater than we imagine. If you're a rideshare driver, like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this. And in the comments, tell us if you've ever experienced a strange situation during a ride. Your story could help other drivers stay safer.